Have you ever wondered how a cybercriminal group markets itself? I mean, they can't just buy a Super Bowl ad, right? Well, it turns out some of them do the next best thing. They hire their own ad agency. And we're about to dive into a wild digital detective story that pulls back the curtain on this bizarre world where high-stakes hacking meets slick graphic design.
So just take a look at these two images. On the left, you've got this polished, professional-looking mock-up. It could be from any top creative agency. But on the right, a loud, almost crude banner for a service that cashes out stolen credit cards. They look like they're from completely different universes, don't they? Well, what if I told you they were made by the exact same person?
And that's the big question, isn't it? How on earth does a designer who's creating professional, legitimate work end up making ads for one of the most dangerous ransomware gangs on the planet? The answer, it turns out, was buried deep inside a massive data leak.
Okay, let's get into it. And we're actually going to start with the conclusion, because honestly, it is just too bizarre to make you wait. This isn't just about some freelance designer. This is about a really strange and frankly unlikely business partnership.
Yep, you read that right. One of the most infamous ransomware gangs in the world, a group responsible for millions and millions in damages, went out and hired a professional, creative agency to handle their branding. The real mystery here isn't just that it happened, it's how in the world anyone ever found out.
The whole story starts with something that's a nightmare for any criminal organization, a massive internal leak that just blew their entire operation wide open.
It all kicked off in February 2022. This Twitter account, Conti Leaks, just pops up out of nowhere, and it starts publishing the private internal communications of the Conti ransomware gang, one of the biggest and baddest syndicates out there. For security researchers, this was like striking gold, an absolute treasure trove of data.
And I mean, we are talking about a flood of raw data, years of private chats, internal links, planning documents, files, you name it. Basically, every secret a criminal enterprise would kill to protect was suddenly just out there in the open for anyone to dig through. So with all this data just dumped online, the hunt was on. But you have to understand, sifting through thousands of disorganized messages is the definition of finding a needle in a haystack. It wasn't going to be easy. It was going to take a really meticulous, almost forensic approach.
So how did researchers even begin to tackle this digital mountain of data? Well, their method was actually brilliant. First, obviously, they downloaded the entire archive. Then, they automated the really tedious part. They wrote a script to pull out every single web link buried in those chat logs. But, most of those links were going to be dead. So they built another script, kind of like a digital bloodhound, to automatically visit thousands of those URLs to see if any were still live. And after hitting dead end after dead end, one single link hit. It led to a public folder full of files.
And this right here really shows you what they were up against. On the left, that's just a tiny fraction of the URLs they had to check, and on the right, well, that's what they found, almost every single time. Nothing found. It was a painstaking search for one digital needle in a giant haystack of broken links.
All right, so let's talk about that one golden link. What was inside? It wasn't just some random file. Oh no, it was an entire creative portfolio that laid out the gang's marketing strategy for everyone to see.
Inside that one folder, researchers started finding these professionally made video ads, like this one. It's advertising email bases, which is a nice, clean way of saying massive lists of stolen email addresses. The kind of stuff that fuels spam and phishing campaigns.
And then there was this gem, a big, bold banner for a worldwide cash-out service. Yep, there's no hiding what this is. This is a straight-up ad for a money laundering operation designed to help other criminals turn their stolen digital money into untraceable cash.
They even had custom branding for their different businesses, like this logo for an online shop that sells stolen credit card info. It seriously looks like something out of a 90s hacker movie, but this is an ad for a very real and very illegal business.
But this is where the story gets really, really weird. Mixed right in with all the ads for money laundering and stolen data was normal work for totally legitimate clients. We're talking album art for Russian rap artists, ads for fashion brands, promotions for a children's clothing store, and even work for a charity foundation. The very same designer was working for the criminal underworld and mainstream businesses at the same time.
So, the big question is, how could researchers prove it? How could they definitively link these two completely different worlds to the same person? Well, the final clue was hidden inside the files themselves, in their digital fingerprints.
To really get this next part, you need to know about something called EXIF data.
Just think of it like hidden info that gets baked into pretty much every digital file you create. It can tell you all sorts of things, like what camera took a photo, or in this case, the exact file path on the computer where a video was saved, including the computer's username. Okay, so let's look at the actual evidence. On the left, there's that email bases ad made for the gang, and on the right, that's its EXIF data. If you look closely at that file path, you can see the project was saved in a folder named W8D8. That's our first huge clue. Remember that name, W8D8.
Now for clue number 2. Here we have another ad, this time for a different type of ransomware. When you check its EXIF data, you find another critical detail. The username on the computer that made it was Plast. So now we have our 2 key pieces of the puzzle, WAD8 and Plast. And this is the moment where it all clicks into place. When researchers took those 2 clues and started digging, they led straight to a real-world company. W8D8 is the name of a Russian creative agency, W8D8 Digital. And Plast? Well, that's short for Plastika, a Russian rap and hip-hop recording studio that W8D8 Digital works with all the time. The digital fingerprints were a perfect match.
Security researcher Dancho Danchev, who broke this whole incredible story, called it the connect the dots moment. He confirmed that the evidence was clear. Members of a mainstream music recording studio in Russia were moonlighting as the marketing and advertising department for the Conti ransomware gang. Just unbelievable.
When you think about it, this entire international criminal conspiracy was unraveled because of a few stray bits of data found on a single active link among thousands of dead ones. It just goes to show you, even the most sophisticated criminals can be brought down by one tiny digital mistake. It really makes you wonder, in a world where data leaks are inevitable, can any secret truly stay hidden forever?